Hello and welcome to SAMA, Sisters Against Mental Abuse. I am your host, Misty. Thank you for joining us today. And for this episode, we're going to be speaking to Denise. And Denise is amazing. She's an activist for Black women and Black girls. She's the author of books related to Black women and trauma. And she is just one of those dynamic women. She's beautiful, confident, self assured, has everything together. And she kind of talks about this one particular person and how he made her doubt herself. And it just goes to show how damaging mental abuse can really be. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Hi, Denise. Thanks for joining us today. I guess we can start with you telling your story and giving us some background on what happened.
Okay, hi. Thanks for having me, first of all. Okay, so I was coming out of a relationship and I met a guy who was like extremely charming and very, very persistent. He waited. I'm a very difficult person I always have my walls up, so I'm a very difficult person to court, I guess you could say. And so um, he probably pursued me for over a year before I kind of gave in and started kind of sharing some of my past trauma. And keep in mind, this wasn't like immediate. And I'm only saying this because this is something that you should not do. But because I started eventually letting my walls down and started feeling really comfortable, because like I said, he was very patient. I started to let my walls down and I started sharing a lot of things with him. And we grew very, very close. Like it was a really, really close, intimate relationship, although we hadn't been intimate sexually. We just shared so many hidden parts of ourselves. And it was a long distance relationship. So most of our conversation most of our dealing was on the phone or FaceTiming and stuff like that. And like I said, he was very, very charming. Um, when we initially met up the first few times, he was very relaxed and it wasn't a whole lot of, there was not a lot of pressure or anything like that. And he was very fun, very complimentary of me. And so it was, to me, it was like the perfect relationship, the perfect guy. I probably shared with him everything that I wanted in a guy. And so, of course, he became all those things. And he was very easy to talk to. We had very similar personalities, it seemed. He was very much like me. He was smart, he was funny, um he was into a lot of the same things I was into. And with me being an artist and everything, he was very into my art. And like I said, very patient. So by the time things progressed, it was very natural and easy for me to progress into you know, a deeper level, a deeper connection. And like I said, I lived far away, so we would probably see each other once a month, maybe at the most. But we talked every day, shared every mundane thing about our day with each other, which all that was initiated by him. So early morning phone calls, late night phone calls, texts and memes and all kind of stuff all throughout the day. So he really, really just inundated himself into my everyday life. My existence was like with him.
So, can
And
I ask where, because I want to take it back just a little bit, where did you meet him again?
well, we met because we're both into music and stuff. We met initially at a music conference, and then the rest of our dealing was online. So we were in a couple of groups together online. And like I said, he was very patient. So he probably, would just message me here or there, and it was nothing flirtatious or anything about it. When it took on a more flirtatious tone, when we started actually having a conversation, talking on the phone and stuff like that, we eventually flew together to meet up. Well, I didn't fly, I drove, he flew. But we went to another city because I didn't quite feel comfortable with inviting him to my house or anything like that, because I didn't know him like that. And with this being an age of technology and stuff, I wasn't really used to it because I had been married for over 20 years. So I had not had any experience with dating, like, via internet, or with any of the like, I had never FaceTimed anybody, any guy like that. I've done Zoom, but I've never, with business, but I've never done any personal FaceTiming or sending pics or anything like that, or Snapchatting, none of that. So
So sorry, one more thing. I do want to know what made you let your walls down? Because you said that you were guarded and everything like that, and then you kind of jumped forward and he's putting himself in your life. It sounds like very much, calling you constantly. You guys are having constant contact and you're sharing small details about each other's lives. How did it go from you being guarded to you letting those walls down?
he was very patient. So in the beginning, like I said, it was probably longer than a year that he would just send me little messages here or there. So, that's like, let's just say a year and a half of him just kind of being a friend online. You know how you have those people that you meet on, that you talk to online, and
Right.
you just used to seeing them throughout the year, or whatever. It was like a year and a half. By the time we actually started talking, I was very guarded probably for a few months, and he was just very patient with it. He was just, I let him know that I wasn't looking for a relationship or anything like that. We were just kind of talking as friends. I was probably needy, although I was coming across, I thinking I'm coming across as, no, don't talk to me about anything romantic or anything like that. Um, he just won me over by being patient. A lot of guys wouldn't have been that patient. A lot of guys are trying to, from what I've, heard. I haven't done a whole lot of dating, but from what I've heard with, from my friends and throughout the years, a lot of guys like to move fast. They want to, instantly, start sending you naked pics or coming over to your house or trying to have sex with you. He just wasn't like that. He was like, you know, very patient. So months passed without him even being able to approach the subject. And by the time he approached the subject, I started, after talking to him every day for months, my wall started coming down more. And then the things that he would say, and then, he was sharing things about his past relationship. I started sharing, a few things about my past relationship. And I just think that when you talk to somebody like that all day, every day, because we were at the point where we were talking constantly, you're going to start feeling more and more at ease. And it just happened. I just started feeling more and more at ease, and I started letting him in more and more. And I
Okay.
felt like he was letting me in because he was telling me so many things about his life and his ex. And he had also been married for a long time. So it just felt like I found a friend, I guess you could say.
So you were getting closer this time, and by this point, all the details are being shared. You telling each other secrets, talking about past
Hmm.
relationships, and you're feeling comfortable. And you said that you met him, so things are advancing. When did you realize that? Well, let me back up. When did things kind of go sour?
Okay, I think that had I been a little bit more vigilant, I think that I would have picked up on certain red flags. So even though he was sharing a lot of things with me about his past, there was a couple of times early on where I caught him in a lie, and they were small lies. But the one that stands out the most is that we had a talk before about if he had ever cheated on his ex, and he shared a little bit about he said yes, but he shared, a couple of details, and he told me that he hadn't been intimate with that person though. And then later on in a different conversation, he mentions that he was. So there was no reason to lie to me. I had been honest with him about my past. So there was no reason to lie. And it just struck me as strange that somebody would lie about something that's way in the past that you have no reason, but I think it was an attempt for him to make himself seem like this perfect guy. And so those little red flags that were coming up, there were certain things that he was doing. I wasn't looking at it like, I was looking at it like he was a friend, and he was like, when he would call me at 6 a.m., I would think, okay, well, because he would frame it in, I'm checking on you just to make sure, you're okay and everything. But, and if had I known better, I would know that I need to create boundaries. Like, you don't need to call me at 6 a.m. because obviously you're trying to check and see if somebody's in my house, or so allowing somebody to. It wasn't just that he was so interested in everything I had going on. It was a matter of control and trying to figure out how far he can insert himself into my life and my everyday things.
Okay,
So I
yeah.
guess you could
Oh
go
no, go
ahead.
ahead. My bad.
Well, I guess you could say that was the start of things going sour. Eventually, catching him in other lies. And then, the manipulation started. But a lot of times when manipulation starts, it's subtle and it's weird feeling. So there were, I may feel uneasy about something, like we would argue and he would stonewall me, or he would, kind of sound a little belittling, or get off the phone and become unavailable. Now, this is somebody that's available 24/7 to me. And all of a sudden, because you don't like something I say, he was unavailable. It was little small stuff like that.
So when
That
you say stonewalling, he like wasn't talking to you. He was giving you the cold shoulder kind of
total,
thing.
yes, total cold shoulder. Um, Also, like hanging up, or not wanting to talk about things. I'm trying to think, because I just know that it was very frustrating. And and there was a part of me that was feeling like, well, because me and my ex, we would when we would have arguments, we would kind of hash it out, versus like somebody who is totally unavailable for the discussion. So it would be like, he would just abruptly just get off the phone, or give me the silent treatment. At first it would come across like he's just trying to avoid conflict, and he would frame it that way, because he's also very soft spoken, like not really aggressive, very calm sounding. So it would sound like, I'm not going to talk about this. And so it would come across that I was the person that was irate, or, argumentative, and he was just trying not to argue. So, definitely minimizing everything. And it would, early on, it, like I said, it just felt like it made me question whether or not I was the one that was being rude. But eventually I started realizing what it was. And the reason why I'm even using the term stonewalling is because after we would have a disagreement like that, and he would do that, and he would become unavailable, I'd try to call him, he wouldn't answer. It was just weird. And after that, he would start sending me, because he's an intelligent guy and he's always reading. He would start sending me all these, all this psychology on stonewalling or attachment styles, and start trying to educate me on why he may react a certain way. So then I would sympathize. Like he's trying, yeah, like, okay, well, he's trying to do this. And also keep in mind, in the beginning, the stonewalling may last for, 30 minutes. But toward the end, it could last all day and night. You know what I'm saying? It could last for a week. Or
Right.
actually, the very last, it lasted for months. So I just think that those were things that were presenting themselves early on,
Hmm.
and I just wasn't aware.
So, are there any particular instances where you remember, like, what is going on here? Like, where you were thinking something is wrong? Like, were there any of those events that you remember?
Like specific events.
Yeah, like where
Um,
you kind of you're like, whoa. I mean, I guess like being confused and
oh, I was always yes, I was definitely in a state of confusion for a long time. And the thing about it is, oftentimes you're not really aware that it's emotional or mental abuse, and it just feels like it's off, it's confusing. So one of the incidents that I recall, we were out of town together, and I was he made a couple of what I felt like were derogatory comments toward me. But like I said, he's a pretty soft spoken guy. It's not going to sound like, it's not like he would just yell and cuss me out or anything like that. It was way, way more manipulative and harmful than that.
like
Like I
like
was,
like kind of like sneak dissing or like
yes,
what
like
is it that they call it?
humiliation and criticize and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be like, people often think, okay, well, he didn't call me a B, or he didn't. No, he would never do that. But he can make you feel like one.
What did
He's
he
not gonna.
say?
Well, he basically was telling me that I was intimidated. His ex-wife had a real prominent position, and I was intimidated by her, and just saying a lot of things about my financial situation. And also keep in mind that this was coming on the heels of him, where in the beginning I was perfect, I was so beautiful, my style was just, oh my God, it was just amazing, everything about me was so amazing. Well, suddenly things started kind of shifting to where it was like, well, why are you wearing this? Well, why are you wearing that? Would you please stop? Why is your hair like this? Why you don't wear
Mm.
makeup? Why don't you? And I wasn't realizing it, but it was chipping away at me. And I'm a pretty confident person, but when the person that you're into, that was once like all like complimenting everything about you and your style and all that kind of stuff. And I was aware that my style was very different from his. And so slowly he started criticizing like little small subtle things like, well, you could go to a YouTube tutorial and look at the makeup and see how they apply it and stuff. Or you should get your hair done. I mean, I would pay for it if you want to get your hair done. I mean, because there's nothing wrong with that. And I think you should do that. So then you're looking in the mirror like, well, what's wrong with my hair? So all these things, had been taking place over a few months of him, critiquing everything about, I mean, to the point where I would feel uncomfortable around him. So then it got to, but it was always framed in, I'm helping you though. Like it wasn't framed in a negative way. So, those kind of things make you question whether or not, like, am I tripping? Because he's just trying to be nice to me. He's encouraging me, but it feels like he's picking me apart. So by the time he made the comment about his ex and compared me to him, I got upset. And I'm way more, I mean, I'm a hood chick. I'm just gonna keep it honest with you. I'm way more like, because I'm a little bit older now, I'm way more reserved than I used to be. And I'm used to guys that are kind of like, they wear their emotions on their sleeves. I wasn't used to like the type of guy that he was. He's more of a, corporate nerdy type guy. And so I snapped back when he made the comments to me. I snapped back, and then it just was like I said the worst things in the world. I only said one thing. Since he compared me to his ex, I compared him to my ex. And so it turned into, now we were out of town and we were staying in a hotel. Of course, all this is on his dime and everything. It turned into being ignored, being stonewalled all the rest of the weekend, but being like, I mean, he would say like, did you want to go eat? But other than that, there was like no conversation. I apologized. He apologized, but it was still, and I initiated the apology, and it was still all weekend me feeling like, okay, well, like we can't move past this. And it was, in my opinion, it was on the scale of an argument, it was pretty small. Well, it didn't just last. It didn't just end there. We left town. I flew all the way back home. He flew back home and never called to see if I made it in or anything like that. For the next 2 or 3 weeks, he brought it up every single day. And all like, you remember I told you in the beginning that he was calling and all day long and messaging all day long. Stopped abruptly. No calls in the morning, no calls in the evening, no texts, no nothing, no hearts, no memes, no nothing, no video, just completely disengaged from anything. So it had me kind of spiraling like I was used to an argument with a rational person where you have an argument, maybe by the next day, if not that same night, y'all squash it, you move on. It turned into 3 weeks of him dragging me. Like I'd done and said the worst thing in the world. And during the dragging, if I snapped back and, and defended myself, that became the new thing. Well, now you said this. So now, and it became a cycle that felt like it was just never ending. And the behavior, like I wasn't prepared for the behavior to change so abruptly to where this person that had been, because we were dating for 3 years, this person that I had been dating for 3 years, all of a sudden, just like, what do you call it? Like just discarded everything, emotionally discarded it.
Mm-hmm.
But in his mind, I'm still there. I mean, what do you mean? So it definitely was confusing.
Oh, yeah. So was that around the time, how did you manage that 3 weeks that he wasn't talking to you? Did you realize like, I don't want to do this? Because you're used to a healthier environment where people actually talk about their issues. Did you
Well, I mean, to be
realize?
honest, I wasn't necessarily used to a healthy environment, but I was used to people that actually talk through their issues at some point. I did not manage that 3 weeks very well. I was like, it really disrupted. And a lot of that, I'll say at least half of it had to do with me. Like, there was something with me to where I felt like, I guess I like maybe abandonment issues and codependency and stuff. And, a lot of times those type of people latch on to empaths and people that feel deeply. So I didn't handle it very well, because when somebody's not straight up with you, if they're not saying, hey, I want to end the relationship, or hey, I want to, it's just, every day was a roller coaster. Today he sounds okay. Tomorrow it's like back, and he was saying a lot of things like, which is typical, which is like wanting to end the relationship, but not really. I don't want to end it, but I just think maybe we should take a break because, I'm not, because you did A, B, C, and D. So maybe we should just take a break. And then when I would say, well, if we take a break, I'm just going to move on. No, I don't want to do that. But I'm just saying, why can't I just take a break? Because I need to get my mind together and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, he was
So
playing with your emotions, very
yes,
much
for
so.
3 weeks, probably every day, he mentioned
Wow.
wanting to take a break, wanting to move on. Maybe we shouldn't. I should give him the space. I'm being selfish and blah, 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 blah. By the end of that 3 weeks, I was like, I tell you what, let's just go ahead and end it. You go ahead and take all the time you need. Because he couldn't give me even a time frame. You take all the time you need. I'm just going to move on with my life. That night, my phone started blowing up. Baby, don't do this to me. I love you so much. Why, you're breaking my heart and blah, 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 blah. And I get back involved. And then by the next day, nothing changes. It's back to the same old. I don't know what I want to do. And that cycle will continue probably for 3 or 4 months. It'd be good maybe for a week or so, and then it'd go back. And it just made me kind of feel like I start calling friends and my brother, trying to see what their take was on it. My brother was like, oh, he's probably cheating. He's probably seeing another female. It was just so many things. And another reason why it was able to kind of go on that long was because somewhere after that 3 weeks, he started telling me and sending me paperwork and all kind of information and medication that he was taking. And he started telling me that he was clinically depressed. And I suffer from anxiety. So he brought that up. And I've been there for you through your anxiety, but now I'm clinically depressed and you're not there for me. And I'm seeing, and he was taking meds and he had stopped taking meds and he, was trying to convince me that he had a breakdown when during those 3 weeks and that I wasn't being supportive. And, it was a lot of manipulation. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
just,
Yeah, because what I hear now is so he started off by trying to control your self-worth, comparing you to his ex,
yes, very much.
talking about your hair, your makeup, like
Mm-hmm.
subtle jabs, trying to manipulate your emotions. Because now
Right.
he's like stonewalling you, like giving you the silent treatment, taking you on a roller coaster, using small arguments against you. And then it sounds like when you're ready to leave, he's trying to give some sob story and he's playing on your feelings to
Yes.
kind of control you. Meanwhile,
Several times.
yeah, and
Several
meanwhile,
times.
your family is not, they don't sound like they understand what exactly is going on. Oh, he's cheating and stuff like that. So at this point, do you have anyone who's on the outside who's on the outside of the relationship that understands like, hey, this is mentally abusive or
Well, yeah, I mean, one of my best friends that I talk to all the time, me and, here's the thing. Since he was so charming, everybody loved him. Like my family, my friends, he had friended my friends on Facebook and everything, social media. And so in the beginning, she was even like, oh, well, he probably is going through something. And, but as time progressed and every day or every week, I'm telling her what's going on, she eventually started realizing the same thing that I was realizing. And she'd be like, oh, no, you need to end this. You need to cut it off right now. Because it was so much back and forth, so much playing on my emotions. I'll fly you out here. I'll buy you all this stuff. He was also very, like I said, very charming. He would buy me everything. So I'm going to fly you out here and buy you all this stuff. But when you come down, and treat you like crap. And then, so she eventually came to have the same realization that I had, that this guy who presents himself so perfectly is really not who he presents himself as, and it's hurting you. I sent her pictures of me one time I think it was during that 3-week period where I was just at my wit's end. I literally probably spent a week crying off and on at work, like at my desk, but moving, where nobody could see me. We would have conversations, whatever, and I may be kind of weepy or crying or whatever. And I sent her a picture of me like that Saturday, and she started crying when she saw the picture of me. Like I had super big bags under my eyes. I looked so stressed out, looked like a raccoon. I was thin. And, and like I said, I also have anxiety problems and stuff. So when you already are dealing with something like that would spiral you. And I got sick that I don't know if I had COVID because I never did tests, but I got like super sick at that time. And like that, I do feel like the stress that I was going through impacted my health. It made me susceptible to coming down with something I probably would have just like brushed off. Because I'm pretty athletic and I eat, I eat very well and all that kind of stuff. But because my emotional state was so low, that messes with your immunity. But yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of like little subtle things of control, pushing my buttons and then blaming me when my buttons would get pushed, belittling things, and making little subtle insults or jabs about my appearance or just anything.
So, okay, so we are at the point in the story where he came back and he's talking about how he's suffering with depression and all these other issues. What was the straw that broke the camel's back? Like, what was this is over. I'm done. I'm not falling for this anymore. What was that situation like?
I started catching him up in so many lies that it was like I had the realization that this person is not who I thought they were. And there were things that I put together from his past that made me feel like, okay, it's not me. I found out things about his ex that, he pretty much was the same way. I didn't talk to her, but I was able to put things together. And just realizing that like once the cat is out the bag, once the cover is blown, like he's not ever going to return to the person that was like love bombing me and sharing and the person that he was in the beginning, that he was presenting himself as, that he was pretending to be. Once so much, like there were things that I caught him in, lies, and that I knew that he would never be able to go back to that person, and he knew also. And so we both just decided to just do like a cold break. But here's the thing: every single time we would say that we're not going to talk, and a lot of the time, well, I say half the time, it was him, probably more than half. It was him saying it was ending. He would be the one to call me back, or I had like a major event in Atlanta one time, and when I came back from the event, he was like, he didn't even look at any of the pictures or anything like that. But when I came back from the event, he was like, yeah, we got to end things. I don't want to deal with you. I don't want to talk to you. And I was like, so you don't want me to call you anymore? No, I just think it's best if you don't call me, and I won't call you. So I'm all heartbroken as usual. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. I get off the phone and I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to call him. I'm not going to talk to him. And he calls me all the next week. So the final thing just came when I just decided I'm not going to talk to you. I'm gonna block him on everything. I'm not going to go through that up and down. I think that had I not made that decision and blocked everything, I'd still be going through it. I don't think it would have ever stopped.
Oh yeah, it probably wouldn't have. You you're describing someone that I've dated in the past in terms of this person is super charming and they have an image and they have all
Right.
this stuff, and then you get to know them and you're like, this is what I signed up for.
Right.
Because they have such a good image, and in my experience they'll work so hard to preserve that image at any
Yes.
cost.
Yes.
Like they will do whatever it takes to protect that image. So I know that that's frustrating, and then you almost think like, am I crazy or is this person really like this? Because the person that I
That's what
saw
I thought.
before is not the same person that I'm seeing when it's just us. What is going on here?
It was a total change from who I saw at first to who I saw at the end. But I will say this though, one of the things he shared with me in the past was that there were some like restraining orders from his ex, and I did notice. What I noticed is when I first met him, him and his ex were co-parenting. Everything seemed beautiful. Of course, he painted it like, he still did a lot of things for her. They had children that were older kids. And so he did, but he still did a lot of things for her. And I felt like that was good. That means you're a good person, because you and your ex are, somewhere during our relationship though, she got to the point where she would only communicate with him through email. So that was a red flag. Like, why is your ex now only communicating with you on email? And then he had shared, just like I shared things, he shared, with me that there was a restraining order before that is, but the way he framed it was that his ex did this frivolous restraining order that caused him a high position that he had. And I didn't really think much of it, giving him the benefit of the doubt at the time. It wasn't a physically abusive situation. He made, maybe, I think it was some threats or something like that. And so I was like, okay, well, after we started having issues, I looked it all up, and it was like totally mentally abusive. It was, and possibly could have gotten physical abusive. The things that he said to her and the threats he had, the threats that he made to her was enough for her to go file that. And she mentioned other times in the restraining order, she mentioned other things that had taken place. And also, prior to that incident and then following that incident, that he came up to her job and he was threatening her. And so I was just able to kind of put two and two together. There were things that happened to let me know, thank God we didn't live in the same state, because I think that he, judging by the trajectory of their relationship and how he had started coming over to her house unexpectedly and stuff like that, even during the time we were talking, he would tell me, I went over there to take my son. She wanted me to take my son something. She wanted me to bring it in the morning, but I was already on this side of town. So I just showed up. And this is a woman that's only communicating with him on email now. So I just showed up, and she had a guy in the house that she's been seeing. And he would make it like she was being unreasonable with him. And all he was trying to do was just drop something off for his son. But of course, after we started having our issues, looking at it through a different lens, it's like, no, you got stalker tendencies. You're not even with this woman, but you won't respect her boundary at her house. You get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's definitely something to look out for and I noticed this early on. The way that they talk about their exes is a huge deal. And
Mm-hmm.
is it like, and for me, mine played the sympathy card. Oh, well, she
Mm-hmm.
just flew off to a different country and never spoke to me again. No, you ran her out of the country because she was tired of dealing with abuse, and you're just not telling me that. So yeah, like paying attention to those, that's a big deal too. So
Right.
you did your homework and you saw what was really going on. So that's good. I'm glad you got out of that. After you found out all this information, how did you cope, like, with severing the ties, um, and
Um,
dealing with
I
that?
I was already in therapy. Well, first of all, I was in therapy for anxiety since like, several years ago. But I wind up finding me another therapist that kind of she was a Black woman therapist. The anxiety doctor was a white guy. And so I found me a Black woman therapist that I could talk to kind of about relationships and stuff. And I started sharing those things with her. Of course, talking to my friends who allowed me space to process, which we throughout the years have done that for each other. But it also helped because I had been out of the dating scene for a while. A lot of this stuff was new to me, and so being able to process it with someone who's been in the dating scene that can also tell me that my emotions and the way I was feeling, because I was feeling devastated, like I felt like I was grieving, and to be able to talk to somebody and say that will tell you, well, that's normal. Sitting there having those thoughts all day long and blaming yourself and saying, why didn't I do this and why didn't I leave? Like why did I go 3 weeks of him, you know, uh, humiliating me and not just walk away then, so being able to talk to friends who are like, okay, well, you remember that time with that guy when I did this, that's just normal. Um, the aftermath was really hard because it started making me question like my worth, my self-esteem, my intelligence, because I'm a very intelligent woman. I'm like, how in the hell did somebody like bamboozle me like that? Um, and because this person had taken up so much of my day that I was sharing all those mundane things with them, there became a void. So then I had to kind of check myself about why did I allow somebody to do that and create this dependency to where now there's a void when there was no void in the beginning. And so I just started filling the void with things that I enjoyed, like reading and writing and working out. Keep in mind that I also had to remind myself that like those are not because I was sending him pictures all through my day of me working out, and he was very proud of a lot of things I was doing. I had to remind myself that those things are me. I own those things. I was doing those long before I met him. And
Yes.
just because you don't have someone to share all that with doesn't, make it less important, or, so just reminding myself that I am an authentic person. That person is not authentic. Um, and I started doing live videos of dealing with like toxic people, and that helped. Because now I was like, okay, now I'm an expert, and so I started doing these little videos and just kind of talking about different things. And that was kind of therapeutic. People would come on my live and be like, girl, yeah, I dealt with that. Even guys, yeah, I dealt with this, I dealt with that. So that was therapeutic for me. And just, the main thing was just the time. And I already knew. I was like, it's just going to take time, and because I was in a marriage for 20 years and this came at the end of that, I think it kind of doubled the impact, because you really need to give yourself time to grieve and move through things, work through things and process. And I probably should have just been by myself for a while. But,
Oh
it is what it
yeah.
is. You got to pick yourself up.
Oh yeah, and that support system is everything too.
Oh
I
my
know
God.
that. I know that. So I do have a question that I wanted to ask as we are closing. And what kind of advice do you have for other Black women that might be in a mentally abusive relationship, or like, because I think a lot of them know that something is wrong, but we have family and they're like, oh no, he's just going through something, or
Right.
like you said. So what kind of advice do you have for them, especially if they're doubting themselves?
Well, don't doubt what your feelings are. Pay attention to your feelings, your emotions, how you feel around a person. Definitely get out. It sounds easier than it is, because, like you said, I'm glad that you're even having this discussion and you're opening up this conversation, because as Black women, a lot of times we're like told that, if he's not doing drugs, he's not physically putting his hands on you, he's not selling drugs,
Right, right.
you know, they don't talk about mental abuse or selfishness or all these other things that, that are like super damaging. Um, so just to even realize and acknowledge that it's mental or emotional abuse, because it doesn't present as noticeable as physical abuse. But if you recognize that you're constantly in a battle and you notice these signs, don't think it's you. Actually, sit there with those signs and recognize them for what they are. I don't feel good. This person is doing this and it's not okay. And to also realize that, you deserve more. I think a lot of times we get comfortable, I think, living in the past, living about, how the person treated us in the beginning and what they mean to us in our life, but not being present, how you're treating me presently. And so I would say just leave it. One of the things about mental abuse, it goes on for so long because it's not as cut and dry as, okay, well, he blacked my eye. Should I stay? Should I leave? It's so subtle, and it does make you question yourself. And, and also maybe, just like we mentioned earlier, talk it out with somebody that you can, because when somebody is playing those mental acrobatics on your mind, you do start questioning yourself. Did I say that? Was I acting funny? Was it me?
Oh
So
yeah.
talking to somebody that you trust and letting them know. And so that way they can, from the outside looking in, they can help process it with you, because it is confusing. It's very confusing. Like at the end, when I was finally out of that relationship, it seems clear as day. But in the midst of it, my mind was in a whirl.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's completely different when you're in it, and you have to be able to have a support system of friends or family that know you and that can see what's going on and that will
Right.
actually tell you. Because I've had friends that knew what was going on and they didn't tell me how messed up it was, and I didn't realize how messed up the situation was until I got out of it. So I definitely agree
Well,
with that too.
even my friends, like you said, they know you. So like that one friend I was telling you about, she was like, you have never questioned your appearance. You have never questioned this. You're not a jealous person. Somebody to just kind of like remind you of who you are, because the person will make you feel like, oh, you're just being jealous. Oh, you're just doing this. Or you're just being insecure. Or you're being needy. And so to have your friends be like, you've never acted like this in no other relationship. You've never questioned whether or not, I think the tide started changing with my friend when she started noticing me questioning certain things or asking her questions about, like, or, telling her things he was saying to me about my appearance. And she's like, whoa, I'm mad. You've never questioned that. You've never acted like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, she knows that I'm not an insecure person. So for me to start feeling insecure, she knew something was off.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing too. You'll notice it. I mean, they should be very much, I guess it forces you to be self-aware after the fact, but you have to
Mm-hmm.
have a self-awareness to get yourself out of it, because then you, like I said, you will think that you're crazy, or it sometimes is so subtle that you don't even notice it, and then all of a sudden you're like,
Mm-hmm.
man, I don't like myself like I used to. My self-esteem is
Yeah.
declining. I feel insecure about the way my body
Mm-hmm.
looks, or so yeah, controlling your self-worth, that's what that is.
Yeah. I was just saying that what you described is exactly how it was. It was subtle, and it was over time, where by the time you realize it, you're like, you know,
Yeah,
it's already did damage.
yeah, I'm really excited that you came on. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And that concludes our episode for tonight. If you are a Black woman with a story to share about mental abuse, or if you are a Black woman in the mental health field, please do reach out to us at samatogether@gmail.com. We're on Facebook as Sisters Against Mental Abuse, and we are also on Instagram at Sama Together Now. Have a good night, and remember, mental abuse is abuse.